Recently, I made a video taking a look at 7 footballers who perhaps don't earn as much as they should or could in relation to their talent and performances. One of the players in that video, namely the Brazilian international and Corinthians star Renato Augusto, reportedly earns just £2,645 a week. That is still a lot of money. It's almost £140,000 a year. But as I pointed out in that video, it isn't a lot of money for someone who has won 32 caps for Brazil and remains a brilliant midfielder, aged 33. And it's also less than some players within the English non-league game. That reminded me of a video that I made many moons ago, which did surprisingly well, taking a look at non-league football's top earners. Back then, the 7 contained players from as low as level 7 in the Football League pyramid, because of Glenn Tamplin's mad experiment at Billericay Town, where he signed the likes of Paul Konchesky, Jamie O'Hara, and Jermaine Pennant. Now the big earners are concentrated in the Vanarama National League, although the likes of Clayton Donaldson at York City and both Lee Martin and Chris Solly at Ebbsfleet, all of whom play at level 6, came close to featuring in today's 7. For any viewers from outside of England, or just anyone who might not be familiar with the Football League system, non-league is the collective name for all football that is played in England outside of the Football League, which is now known as the EFL, and of course the Premier League. So that is to say, level 5 and below. In most countries, anything below level 3 is almost exclusively amateur and semi-professional. But English football's almost unique depth and culture means that isn't the case, even when you delve deep down into the depths of the English game. Here are, reportedly, the 7 best paid non-league footballers. Danny Rowe and Adam Rooney, £2,000 a week. I think I'm right in saying that Adam Rooney topped our 7 in the last iteration of today's video, fresh off the back of a shock move to Salford City where he was reported to have been handed a contract worth a whopping £4,000 a week, in order to lure him away from the top flight of Scottish football. Rooney's departure from Aberdeen, where he scored 88 goals in 167 games, was seen as a huge statement of intent by Salford in the National League, though many observers north of the border were quick to point out that Rooney's output had declined pretty sharply in the Scottish Premiership over the 2 preceding seasons. Nonetheless, he was fairly lethal for Salford in the National League, bagging 21 goals as Salford won promotion at Wembley Stadium via the playoffs. Rooney didn't win the division's Golden Boot that season, however, as the man who he is tied with in 7th place in today's video scored 26 goals for AFC Fylde that season. Rowe's goal-scoring record for the ambitious, controversially run young outfit from Lancashire, of whom I have made an entire documentary about, was truly outrageous. In 5.5 years at the club, Rowe scored 189 goals in 290 games, including 50 goals in a single season. He joined Oldham Athletic in January 2020, followed by Bradford City in 2021. But having been slightly less prolific in League 2, Rowe was snapped up by Chesterfield prior to the beginning of this season. The scorer of 5 goals in 10 games so far this season, Rowe remains a clear starman in the National League, aged 32, though he is sidelined for injury at the time of this recording. Rooney, meanwhile, left Salford City to join Solihull Moors in 2020, where he is said to be the club's highest earner, though he is yet to score a league goal so far this season. Both players are reported to earn £2,000 a week. That is more than half of the Bodo Glimt team earn, and they beat Roma 6-1 earlier this season. James Jones, £3,000 a week. Not to be confused with the American football player, the basketball player, or the novelist, nor the great James Earl Jones of Scary Movie 4 fame, the James Jones that I'm referring to plays in central midfield for Wrexham. Even very casual followers of the English non-league game won't be surprised to discover that James Jones isn't the only Wrexham player to feature in this 7. And there is a slight contradiction there since, of course, Wrexham isn't in England at all. The Welsh side, who have been stuck in the non-league game for well over a decade now, have a proud tradition of having competed and even defeated the likes of Porto in Europe, as well as having recorded some famous giant killings in the FA Cup. Wrexham fans are optimistic that their team is on the rise once again now, under the joint ownership of Hollywood actors Ryan Reynolds and Rob McElhenney. Not only are Reynolds and McElhenney very wealthy by the standards of most non-league owners, they also seem to be taking their ownership of the club pretty seriously, engaging with fans and looking to build some kind of long-term vision. Last summer, the club invested heavily, and James Jones was among their most ambitious arrivals. Brought in from Lincoln City in League One for an undisclosed fee, the 25-year-old from Dundee has only ever previously played in Leagues 1 and 2, and he still had 2 years left to run on his contract at Sincil Bank. It reportedly took a contract worth £3,000 a week to bring Jones to the racecourse ground, which is a hefty old jump from our first two joint entrants on £2,000 a week, and it's also enough to see Jones tie with our next two inclusions. Anthony Sasebic, £3,000 a week. A very familiar face to anyone who follows lower league football in England, Anthony Sasebic enjoyed a blistering rise up through the divisions almost 10 years ago. In the space of just 2 seasons, Sasebic went from playing for Chester in what was then called the Conference North to making the PFA Team of the Year in League 2 with Fleetwood Town. A creative and industrious central midfielder who can also deputise as a number 10, Sasebic won promotion from League 2 with Bolton Wanderers last season, and he both started and captained the Trotters in their first 13 games of the current campaign in League 1. It would be fair to say that his departure from the club then, in a move to non-league Stockport County at the end of October, came as a bit of a surprise, and that would be putting it very mildly. Sasebic was captaining a League 1 team who have championship aspirations, but chose to drop down into the non-league game for the first time in almost a decade. The midfielder initially shared a fairly cryptic post to his Instagram account about football being a cruel sport, but he has since said that Stockport had been trying to sign him for some time, and that it had always been in the back of his mind that he wanted to join the club. In November, Sasebic returned to Bolton for an FA Cup tie, which Stockport won 5-3 in extra time. Undoubtedly one of the biggest names and biggest talents in non-league football, the 29-year-old was reportedly rewarded with a deal worth £3,000 a week in order to make the significant drop down the divisions. That means that Sasebic reportedly earns twice as much as Ben Johnson, who was West Ham's Young Player of the Year last season and has featured frequently so far this season as the Hammers look to break into the Champions League. Aaron Hayden, £3,000 a week. The last of our 3 inclusions, who are all said to be tied on £3,000 a week, which is more than the average player earns 2 divisions up in League 1, is Aaron Hayden. Bringing us back to the racecourse ground, Hayden was another of Wrexham's ambitious summer signings, brought to Wales from League 2 Carlisle United for an undisclosed fee, reported to be worth around £100,000. Born in Croydon, Hayden spent his formative years at Chelsea before coming through the youth ranks at Wolverhampton Wanderers. A 6'1" centre-back who can also deputise at right-back, Hayden never made a first-team appearance at Mullin, and he was sent out on loan 7 times. After getting released by Wolves in 2019, after the club finished in 7th place in the Premier League, Hayden joined Carlisle United on a rolling 1-year deal following a successful trial. Hayden was an absolute stalwart for Carlisle last season, making 49 appearances in all competitions, and many Carlisle supporters expected him to join a League 1 team. In stepped Wrexham with other ideas though, making Hayden arguably the most accomplished defender in the National League. He has been an ever-present for the Red Dragons so far this season, playing a full 90 minutes in every single game, and even chipping in with a few goals. Paddy Madden, £3,500 a week. The second Stockport County star to feature in this 7, Paddy Madden is said to be the Hatters' highest earner, with a reported weekly wage of £3,500. That works out at just over £180,000 a year, which means that even if Madden fully utilises his £40,000 annual pension allowance, he will still get stuck with a 60% tax trap between £100,000 and £125,000, though he would avoid paying any additional rate tax over £150,000. You really do get a bit of everything on this channel. I'm going to have Paddy Madden sliding into my DMs asking for accounting advice again now, aren't I? To be clear, that has never previously happened. Madden is someone who I am fairly familiar with though, since throughout his rich vein of form at nearby Scunthorpe United, he was often linked with a move to my team, Hull City. Capped once by the Republic of Ireland in 2013, Madden came to prominence at Plymouth Argyle under Gary Johnson, where he scored the goals that fired the Glovers to promotion from League One. Very respectable stints at Scunthorpe and Fleetwood followed before Madden dropped down 2 divisions in March 2021. According to reports, Stockport paid Fleetwood £250,000 to sign Madden, a deal that was deemed too good to be turned down by the League One side, who were looking to trim down their wage budget at the time anyway. The transfer also worked out well for Madden, who signed a long-term 3-year and 3-month contract, which will keep him contracted to Stockport until the age of 34. Madden has scored 7 goals in 17 games for Stockport so far this season, as the Hatters occupy 9th place in the National League, albeit with a game in hand over some of those ahead of them. Ben Tozer, £4,000 a week. Between them, Wrexham's 2 centre-backs are believed to earn some £7,000 a week in the Vanarama National League. I doubt you would have too much trouble finding 1 or 2 championship duos this season who earn less, along with the vast majority of pairings in both Leagues 1 and 2. Unsurprisingly, Ben Tozer was yet another summer signing, brought to Wrexham from an EFL club. Aged 31, Tozer once played for Newcastle United during their 2009-10 Championship title-winning campaign, and prior to joining Wrexham, he had never played non-league football. Tozer spent a decade as a first-team regular in League 2 with Northampton Town, Yeovil Town, Newport County and Cheltenham, and he made the PFA League 2 Team of the Year last season, in addition to winning both Cheltenham's Players and Supporters Player of the Year awards. That made him a real coup for Wrexham, who had to fork out a 6-figure fee to sign Tozer even in the autumn of his career. In theory, Wrexham's defence should be ironclad, with arguably the 2 best centre-backs in the league featuring side by side. In reality, they have conceded 18 goals in 16 games at the time of this recording, which only gives them the joint 6th best defensive record in the division. Paul Mullin, £4,000 a week. Wrexham absolutely dominate this 7, with 4 inclusions out of the 8 players to feature, so the fact that they are only in 8th place in the National League at the time of recording will come as a disappointment, even so early on in their Hollywood project. Despite making a raft of EFL signings, Wrexham's most ambitious arrival, and the one that turned the most heads over the summer, was undoubtedly Paul Mullin. A Scouse centre-forward who had been milling around in League 2 for more than half a decade, Mullin came alive last season. He scored 34 goals in 50 games during a sensational season at Cambridge United, as his goals helped fire the U's to promotion. Mullin was therefore guaranteed to be the star man for a League 1 team this season if he accepted a new contract offer from the club, and there was even talk of a move to the Championship and specifically to Preston North End. But in the end, he chose to drop down not 1, but 2 divisions down into the non-league game for the first time since he went on loan to Vauxhall Motors all the way back in 2013. Cambridge said that Mullin had secured an unbelievable contract in Wales, reported to be worth £4,000 a week. That works out at over £200,000 a year, which means that if there are any goal or appearance bonuses in there, Mullin could well be in danger of seeing his pension allowance start to taper altogether. Alright, I'll stop with that now. Absolutely lethal last season, Mullin was some statement of intent from Wrexham's new owners, though some people were quick to point out the fact that the 27-year-old had only actually had 1 stunning season. Nonetheless, scoring goals at National League level seems to come naturally to him, and he has bagged 9 goals in 13 games so far this season, which, somewhat surprisingly, only puts him 5th in the National League top scoring charts. Kabongo Shimanga leads the way in the division so far this season. In case any of you were interested, the Congo-born 24-year-old Chesterfield marksman, having scored exactly 17 goals in 17 games so far this term, at least at the time of this recording. So that is it for today's video, but thank you all very much as ever for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Hit the like button if that was the case. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed and have notifications turned on for HITC Sevens. You can also find me on Instagram or on Twitter via the username @HITC Sevens on both, should you wish to do so.